If you masturbate every day, your prostate might be in serious danger, or it could be doing better than ever. I know that sounds extreme, but after treating men for over 30 years, I've seen the silent confusion this causes. Many of you have heard the same old warnings. Don't do it too much or you'll ruin your prostate. You'll weaken yourself. You'll increase your risk of cancer. But here's the truth. Most of these fears, they're outdated myths, not facts, and in some cases the reality is the exact opposite of what you were told. I'm Dr. James. I've spent decades helping men over 60 navigate the most personal and often misunderstood parts of their health. And this one topic, daily masturbation and its impact on the prostate, keeps coming up, quietly, awkwardly, often with shame. So let me ask you this. What if daily ejaculation could actually help reduce your cancer risk? What if it's not a danger, but a built-in mechanism for healing? In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 8 powerful insights every man needs to know. Backed by Harvard research, clinical experience, and decades of medical evidence, I'll reveal what really happens to your prostate when you masturbate regularly. The benefits, the risks, and the hidden truths that most doctors never explain. And one study in particular, it might just change the way you view your body forever. Before we dive in, if you're a man over 60 who cares about your health and wants the real truth, not just old myths, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. I create these videos specifically for you. And if you find this one helpful, just type 1 inch in the comments. If not, type 0 inches and let me know what I can do better to support you. All right, let's begin with the first and perhaps most surprising truth. One that shook the medical world when it was published. It comes from a major study at Harvard involving nearly 32,000 men tracked over almost 2 decades. And what they discovered about ejaculation frequency and prostate cancer risk completely flipped the script. 1. The Harvard Revelation. I still remember the day I first read the Harvard study. I was sitting in my office reviewing the usual pile of research journals when one particular headline caught my eye. It wasn't dramatic or flashy, but the data underneath it stopped me cold. It was a landmark study out of the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, tracking nearly 32,000 men over the course of 18 years. That alone is impressive. Few studies last that long or follow that many people. But what truly stunned me was what they were measuring: ejaculation frequency and its connection to prostate cancer. It was a subject most medical journals tiptoe around. But here finally was hard science tackling a question men have whispered about for generations. Is frequent ejaculation, yes, including masturbation, harmful, neutral, or could it possibly be helpful? As I kept reading, I felt my perspective shift. The data was clear. Men who ejaculated 21 or more times per month had up to a 33% lower risk of developing prostate cancer compared to men who ejaculated only 4 to 7 times per month. Think about that. That's not a minor difference. That's a full 1/3 reduction in one of the most feared diseases men face after 60. And yet most men I talk to, patients, friends, even colleagues, have never even heard of this. When I began sharing these findings with my older male patients, the reactions were mixed. Some laughed in disbelief. Others got quiet, thoughtful, as if realizing for the first time that their body was trying to tell them something all along. One man, 68 years old, told me, "Doc, I spent my whole life feeling ashamed of something that might have been saving me." That stuck with me. But here's the most important part. This study didn't come from some fringe wellness blog or questionable survey. It came from Harvard, peer-reviewed, and published in a respected medical journal. And it has since been supported by additional research, including studies from Australia and Europe that show a similar trend. Now, does that mean ejaculation is a magic bullet that protects you from cancer no matter what else is going on? Of course not. There are always other variables at play: diet, genetics, exercise, environment. But when you look at data this strong over a span of decades, it's hard to dismiss. At the very least, it forces us to rethink the old taboos. Because the truth is, ejaculation, especially regular healthy ejaculation, might be part of your body's natural defense system, not something to be ashamed of. So the big question becomes, why? Why does something as simple and natural as ejaculation appear to protect the prostate? What's actually happening inside your body when this occurs? The answer lies in a fascinating theory that scientists are only just beginning to understand, and once you... 2. Theory 1. The prostate flush effect. When I explain this next idea to patients, I usually start with a simple image. Your prostate is a kind of internal filter, or even a system of tiny pipes. Not mechanical, of course, but biological. It's a soft, walnut-sized gland tucked just below the bladder, and most men never give it a second thought until it causes trouble. But inside that small gland are ducts, microscopic channels, where fluid builds up, mixes with sperm, and forms semen. That's its job. And like any system that stores and transports fluid, it functions best when it flows regularly. This is where the prostate flush theory comes in, and honestly, once you hear it, it just makes sense. The idea is simple but powerful. When you go too long without ejaculation, those fluids can sit, they stagnate. The cells lining the ducts can begin to deteriorate. Debris builds up, and over time, this stagnation may contribute to inflammation, cellular stress, or even make the environment more vulnerable to dangerous changes. But when you ejaculate regularly, you're not just releasing semen, you're flushing the system. You're cleaning out those tiny ducts, moving old cells and waste products out of the gland before they have a chance to fester or turn toxic. I've had men in their 70s look at me in shock when I tell them this. Wait, so you're saying that release isn't just for pleasure? They ask, and my answer is always the same. No, it's not just about pleasure. It's maintenance, it's circulation. It's part of how your body protects itself. Just like you wouldn't let standing water sit in a pipe for months without expecting rust or mold, your prostate wasn't designed for endless storage without flow. And there's another layer to this that most people don't realize. Prostate fluid isn't just a neutral substance. It carries compounds, proteins, and enzymes that, if left too long, may trigger oxidative stress or contribute to low-grade inflammation. In a younger man, the body can usually clear this pretty quickly. But as you get older, that natural efficiency starts to fade. The systems slow down. The ducts don't drain as easily. So the idea that ejaculation helps flush the prostate becomes even more important with age, not less. I think about one patient, a retired firefighter named Bill. He was 66 when he came to me with mild prostate symptoms, waking up twice a night to pee, slow stream, a bit of discomfort. He hadn't ejaculated in weeks and hadn't had intimacy with his wife in years. When we talked about these theories, something in him softened. "No one ever told me it mattered," he said. After we made a plan to bring some healthy routine back into his life, including regular release, his symptoms improved. Not dramatically overnight, but steadily. And perhaps even more importantly, so did his confidence. Now, flushing the system is one thing, but what if there's an even deeper reason ejaculation helps? What if the very process of release triggers something at the cellular level, something that could prevent the kinds of genetic mistakes that lead to cancer in the first place? That's where things start to get even more fascinating and more hopeful. Let's explore that next. 3. Theory 2. Cellular renewal and DNA protection. Now let's go deeper, beyond ducts and fluids, into something far more microscopic, but just as important. Your cells. Every second of every day, the cells in your body are working, dividing, replacing, and repairing. It's how you heal. It's how you age. And it's also how cancer can begin, quietly, invisibly, at the cellular level. What many men don't realize is that your prostate, just like any other organ, is made up of billions of cells constantly renewing themselves. But as you get older, that process slows down. The cleanup crew doesn't show up as quickly, damaged cells linger longer. And with each cell division, there's a small chance that something goes wrong, a tiny error in the DNA. Most of the time, your body catches these mistakes, but sometimes it doesn't. And over the course of years, those errors can grow into something much more serious. Here's where ejaculation may play a more powerful role than we once believed. According to emerging research, regular ejaculation might actually encourage a healthier rhythm of cell turnover in the prostate. In other words, the very act of release could help prompt the gland to refresh itself, to shed aging or damaged cells and replace them with new healthy ones. It's like pruning a tree. When done regularly, you remove the weak branches before they become a problem. But if you leave it untouched for too long, rot sets in and the damage spreads. One of my patients, Martin, 72, had a quiet strength about him. He didn't say much during our first appointment, but when I explained this theory of cellular renewal, his eyes lit up. "So you're telling me," he asked, "that something as basic as sex, or even just masturbating, might be helping me stay clean on the inside?" I nodded. "Yes, it might." He paused, looked down, and smiled to himself. "That's a relief to hear, Doc. I thought maybe I was just clinging to old habits." We both laughed, but underneath that moment was something real. A man recognizing that his biology wasn't betraying him. In fact, it was still working for him. Now again, we're not saying ejaculation is some miracle therapy. It's not about obsessing over the numbers or setting a timer. But when you understand how interconnected your body is, how something as simple and natural as ejaculation could actually support the very foundations of prostate health, it gives you a whole new appreciation for your body's wisdom. And there's one more piece of this puzzle that we absolutely can't ignore. Because even if your cells are renewing properly and your ducts are flowing, there's another force at play, one that builds silently in the background. It's something every man over 60 faces, whether he realizes it or not. I'm talking about stress. And what stress does to your prostate, to your hormones, and to your inflammation levels, that's where things take an unexpected turn. Let's talk about that next. 4. Theory 3. Lowering stress, inflammation, and emotional tension. There's a truth that every man over 60 learns, either slowly or all at once. Stress doesn't just live in your mind, it burrows into your body. It shows up in your blood pressure, your sleep, your digestion, even your prostate. We often think of stress as something you just push through, but the older you get, the more your body feels every ounce of it, and nowhere is that more evident than in the way stress fuels inflammation. Now, inflammation isn't always bad. It's part of your body's natural defense system, but when it sticks around for too long, it becomes a silent enemy, contributing to everything from heart disease to joint pain. And yes, to prostate issues. Chronic inflammation creates the perfect environment for trouble. And here's where it gets interesting. Regular ejaculation may help fight back against that process in a very natural, very human way. You see, when you reach orgasm, your body releases a surge of feel-good chemicals. Dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, these aren't just mood boosters. They have measurable effects on the body. They reduce cortisol, the primary stress hormone. They ease muscle tension. They promote better sleep. And they help lower systemic inflammation. It's not just a fleeting moment of relief, it's a reset button. And that reset matters more than ever in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. I remember one of my patients, Alan, 69, widowed, retired Army, told me he hadn't been intimate with anyone in years. It just didn't seem important anymore, he said. But as we talked about his recurring prostate discomfort and trouble sleeping, I asked him gently about whether he still allowed himself any release. He hesitated, then nodded, almost embarrassed. "Sometimes," he said. I told him without judgment that he might want to do it a little more often, and not just for sexual reasons, for healing, for letting his body do what it's built to do. A few months later, he came back, smiling. His words stuck with me. "Doc, I didn't realize how much tension I was carrying until I let it go." That's what this is really about, giving your body space to breathe. Because sexual health isn't just about performance, it's about emotional balance. And that balance plays a role in every major system in your body, especially your immune response and your hormonal rhythm. So when you think about masturbation or ejaculation, don't see it as just a physical act. See it as a form of emotional regulation, a way to quiet the internal noise, even for a few minutes, and let your nervous system find calm again. Especially in a world that constantly demands your strength, it's okay to give yourself a moment of softness. But as powerful as these internal effects are, they don't mean much if you're ignoring the warning signs, because sometimes men use masturbation to distract themselves from deeper issues that could be serious. And in the next section, we're going to face that head-on: the hidden risks, the silent damage, and how to know when your body is trying to tell you something's wrong. 5. What about the risks? When daily masturbation might be harmful. Now I know what some of you may be thinking. If ejaculation has all these benefits for your prostate, then more must always be better, right? But here's where I have to pause as your doctor and speak to you as a man who's seen both sides of this story. Because while daily ejaculation can absolutely be part of a healthy, vibrant life, it can also become a problem when it's driven not by health but by habit, avoidance, or pain that hasn't been faced. Over the years, I've had countless conversations with men who thought they were doing something harmless, even helpful, only to realize they were using masturbation as a way to escape. Not from their bodies, but from their feelings, from loneliness, from anxiety, from the emptiness of a life that no longer feels connected to touch, to meaning, to relationship. In those cases, masturbation wasn't healing, it was hiding. And that's a very different story. One patient of mine, Tom, 63, came to me not because of physical pain, but because he felt numb, emotionally flat, disconnected from life. He'd gotten into a routine of daily masturbation, sometimes more, but instead of feeling better afterward, he felt ashamed. Not because of the act itself, but because it wasn't bringing him closer to anything. It was just filling time. When we talked honestly, he admitted he hadn't looked his own body in the mirror without judgment in years. And more importantly, he hadn't felt touched, truly touched, by another person in even longer. Then there's the issue of overstimulation. In today's world, many men aren't just masturbating, they're doing it in front of endless screens, chasing images that grow more extreme, more artificial, more disconnected from real intimacy. What starts out feeling exciting can gradually dull your sensitivity, both physically and emotionally. Your brain adapts, your body adjusts, and what used to be natural starts to require more and more stimulation just to feel anything at all. That can absolutely lead to performance issues, delayed response, or even erectile dysfunction, not from age, but from overexposure. And finally, there are the physical warning signs we must never ignore. If you're experiencing pain during ejaculation, blood in your semen, a sudden drop in force or flow, or changes in urinary habits, don't dismiss it. Don't mask it with more release. These could be signs of prostatitis, an enlarged prostate, or something more serious. Your body doesn't whisper for no reason, it's asking you to pay attention. So yes, daily ejaculation can support prostate health, but it's not a free pass to ignore what's happening underneath. It's not a license to disconnect from your emotions or your body. Like anything powerful, it needs awareness, intention, and balance. When approached mindfully, it can be a gift. When used unconsciously, it can become a trap. But even beyond these risks, there's something else going on inside your body as you age. A silent shift that most men don't even realize is happening. It's mechanical, not emotional. A hidden blockage that affects how your prostate drains and functions, even if you're doing everything else right. And once you understand this next piece, you'll see why some symptoms linger, no matter how often you release. Let's uncover that next. 6. The hidden clog problem in aging prostates, and what to do about it. Sometimes, even when a man is doing everything right, he's eating well, staying active, even keeping a healthy rhythm of sexual release, he still finds himself struggling with the same frustrating symptoms. Waking up multiple times a night to urinate, that constant urge that never seems to fully go away, or a weak stream that feels like it takes forever. It's not just annoying, it can be exhausting, embarrassing, and make you feel like your body is quietly betraying you. Over the years, I've seen men who've tried supplements, exercises, even medication, only to end up back in my office asking the same question: why do I still feel blocked down there, doc? And that's when I talk to them about something we rarely name out loud: the hidden clog. You see, as the prostate naturally enlarges with age, and that's completely normal, it begins to press inward on the urethra, the tiny tube that carries urine out of your body. That pressure isn't always painful. Sometimes it's just subtle enough to cause a bottleneck. The bladder starts to work harder, pushing against that resistance. Eventually, it fatigues. You may not feel it in a dramatic way, but your body does. That sense of never being able to fully empty, that's not just in your head, it's real. And the tricky part is, no amount of ejaculation alone will fully relieve that pressure. Yes, it helps with flow, with fluid movement, with inflammation. But when the prostate physically enlarges enough to narrow the urethra, you're dealing with a mechanical issue, one that needs to be approached from the inside out. That's where certain natural remedies come in. I've had many patients find surprising relief with what we call prostate flushing tonics, often based on mineral-rich spring water combined with Asian herbs like stinging nettle root or saw palmetto. These blends don't just reduce inflammation, they support muscular relaxation in the urinary tract and help the prostate drain more freely. Some men call it a release from the inside, and when combined with lifestyle changes like hydration, walking daily, and cutting back on alcohol, the results can be dramatic. But most of all, men begin to feel like they're in control again, not just reacting to symptoms, but understanding where they come from and how to support their body in working as it was meant to. One of my patients, Leonard, 74, told me, "Doc, I don't need to feel like I'm 25. I just want to sleep through the night and not feel like I have to sprint to the bathroom every morning." And within 3 months of a few consistent changes, he did. Still, even when we get the plumbing flowing better, there's one piece of the puzzle many men overlook: how their daily habits, especially around ejaculation, either support or sabotage their progress. What if there were a simple checklist, a routine you could follow to know you're supporting your prostate in every possible way? That's exactly what we'll cover next. 7. Dr. James' Healthy Ejaculation Checklist for Men over 60. Over the years, many of my patients have looked at me with the same question written all over their faces. Some have the courage to say it out loud, others don't, but I know what they're wondering. So, Doc, what's the right way to do this? They're talking about masturbation, of course, but underneath that question is something deeper. They want to know how to support their prostate, their vitality, their sense of manhood, without shame, confusion, or fear of doing something wrong. And I get it, because once you've lived 6-7 decades in a body that's changed on you, when strength slows, libido softens, and energy isn't what it used to be, you start to second-guess what's normal. That's why I created a simple checklist for my patients. Nothing rigid or clinical, just a real-world set of habits to help keep you in balance. Not just sexually, but hormonally, emotionally, and physiologically. First, frequency. While there's no exact magic number, the research suggests that ejaculating around 4 to 7 times per week can help maintain healthy flow, reduce inflammation, and support cellular turnover. For some men, that happens through intimacy. For others, through solo release. Either way, it counts. What matters more than the number is consistency and your emotional relationship with the act. Second, how you do it matters. I always recommend you practice what I call mindful release. That means stepping away from the overstimulating, hypervisual habits many men fall into with pornography. Instead, slow it down. Focus on sensation. Use it as a moment of reconnection with your body, not distraction. You'll be amazed how different it feels when you bring awareness into the process. Third, support your body with a prostate-friendly lifestyle. Tomatoes, pumpkin seeds, green tea, and fatty fish like salmon offer incredible benefits. Add regular movement, walking, light weights, or stretching, just 20 to 30 minutes a day. Stay hydrated, limit processed meats, sugar, and alcohol. You're not trying to be perfect, you're trying to be consistent. Think of it as feeding the system that supports your manhood. And finally, don't skip your checkups. I can't tell you how many men avoid the PSA blood test or hesitate to bring up symptoms out of pride or embarrassment. But early detection is your greatest ally. If something is off, the sooner we catch it, the more options you'll have. There is no bravery in silence when it comes to your health. There's only risk. This checklist isn't about restriction, it's about restoration, about giving your body the environment it needs to function well, about letting go of shame and stepping into ownership of your well-being. When a man treats ejaculation not as a guilty escape but as a tool of maintenance and self-respect, everything changes. Still, even with the science, the structure, and the strategy, there's one thing holding many men back, and it's not physical, it's emotional. It's the quiet shame so many carry from years, even decades, of being told that desire is dirty, that pleasure is weakness, and that intimacy has an expiration date. But what if it's actually the opposite? Let's talk about that next. 8. Emotional healing, from shame to empowerment. There's a part of this conversation that numbers, studies, and medical charts can't touch, and it's the part that matters most. Because behind every man who asks about prostate health or ejaculation frequency, or whether he's still normal after 60, there's a story, a history, a weight carried quietly for decades. I've had men sit across from me, strong men who've raised families and built careers, who fought wars or battled cancer. And still, when it comes to this topic, they speak with a lowered voice, as if desire should be hidden, as if needing release is a weakness, as if the changes in their body mean they're somehow less of a man. And I'll tell you right now, that shame has done more damage than any single habit ever could. Because when a man disconnects from his body, when he feels embarrassed by his urges or confused by the silence around his own biology, he doesn't just suffer alone. He begins to shut down, emotionally, physically, intimately. And that disconnection is where disease grows, where tension builds, where confidence slowly withers. That's why I believe emotional healing is just as essential to prostate health as any supplement, food, or physical routine. You have nothing to apologize for. Your body's desire for touch, for release, for closeness. It didn't vanish just because you turned 60 or 70. It may have changed shape. It may take a little longer, but it's still there, and it's still sacred. When you learn to approach masturbation not with guilt, but with awareness, intention, and even reverence, you begin to reclaim a part of yourself that was never meant to be shut off. I've seen this healing happen, not overnight, but gradually. A man begins to treat his body with more kindness. He no longer sees his prostate symptoms as punishments, but as signals. He stops hiding from himself, and with that shift, something softens inside. Stress eases, relationships improve, the fear begins to fade. That's when real health begins, not from perfect habits, but from the freedom to be honest with yourself again. One of my patients, George, was 76 when he finally told me about the shame he'd carried since his teens. It was always dirty, he said. That's what they told us, and even when I knew better, I couldn't shake it. We talked for a long time, not about prescriptions, but about perspective. A few months later, he came back different, lighter, not because his symptoms had vanished, but because his story had changed. And that, more than anything, is what heals. So as we prepare to close this conversation, there's one final question we have to answer. After everything we've covered, from science to emotion, from risk to relief, what's the real verdict? What does daily masturbation truly do to your prostate? And how do you take this knowledge and turn it into lasting strength? That's exactly what I'll share with you in the final message. Don't miss it. 9. Final message. Reclaim your health, your confidence, and your truth. So now, after everything we've walked through together, after the research, the stories, the science, and the truths most men were never told, we come back to the original question. What does daily masturbation truly do to your prostate? And the honest answer is this. It depends. It depends on your intention. It depends on how you treat your body. It depends on whether that release is part of a balanced, mindful life or a way to escape from pain you haven't yet faced. But here's what we do know. Without a doubt, frequent healthy ejaculation, whether through sex or masturbation, has been linked to a lower risk of prostate cancer, improved drainage of the gland, more efficient cellular turnover, and even reduced stress and inflammation. That's not a theory anymore. That's the best of modern science confirming what the body has known all along. And yet, we also know there are limits. That overuse, especially when driven by compulsion or fueled by overstimulation, can work against you. That ignoring warning signs or using release to numb emotional pain doesn't heal the root, it only masks it. The goal was never to say do it more or do it less. The goal is to help you do it consciously, with awareness, with intention, and with the respect your body deserves. I've walked this road with hundreds of men, some just like you, dealing with nighttime trips to the bathroom, confusion about what's normal, fear about cancer, or quiet questions they were too embarrassed to ask for most of their lives. And what I've seen is this: when a man stops hiding from his body, he starts healing. When he understands how something as simple as ejaculation connects to the deeper systems of health, blood flow, hormone balance, emotional peace, he begins to trust himself again. This journey was never just about your prostate. It's about your relationship with yourself. It's about shifting from fear to clarity, from shame to confidence, from just getting by to finally feeling alive in your body again. You're not broken. You're not behind. You haven't missed your chance. You still have strength. You still have choice. And you still have time to care for yourself in a way that supports you fully, not just as a man, but as a whole human being. So what's the next step? Maybe it's scheduling that checkup you've been putting off. Maybe it's rethinking your habits, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Or maybe it's as simple as taking a moment tonight, alone, without distraction, and reconnecting with your body. Not to fix it, not to fight it, but to appreciate it for everything it's still doing to keep you here. Because that, in the end, is the real answer. What daily masturbation does to your prostate is up to you. And now, you have the truth to decide how to use it. Stay strong, stay curious, and above all, stay connected to yourself, to your health, and to the life you still have ahead. If this video helped you understand your body better, please give it a like, share it with a friend who needs to hear this, and leave a comment below. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you'd like to support more honest, science-backed content for men over 60, consider making a small donation. Every bit helps us keep creating videos that truly matter. Stay strong, and thank you for watching.